What Paul tells us. Jesus Christ is the same yesterday, today, and forever. And there are so many people saying to me today, if Jesus was alive today, he would allow this, that, or the other thing. And I don't think so. Only because of the simple fact that Paul's telling us Jesus Christ is the same yesterday, today, and forever. It means what he has taught us, what he has brought to us in laws of morality and faith are what we have. This is what it's going to be. There are no changes in the action. If we look actually throughout salvation history, there have not been any changes. What he has asked us to do from the beginning is what we do today. And you take the Ten Commandments in a negative way, are the positive side of what Jesus taught us. Jesus said we love the Lord our God with all our heart, with all our soul, with all our mind, with all our strength, and to love our neighbor as ourselves. And think about that. If we love the Lord our God with all our heart, with all our soul, with all our mind, with all our strength, we're not going to break the first 3 commandments. And if we love our neighbor as ourselves, we're going to keep the other 7. Because if we love our neighbor as ourselves, we're not going to steal, we're not going to commit adultery, we're not going to perjure ourselves, we're not going to do any of that. We're going to follow in the Lord's footsteps. And he takes this great negative and makes it a positive. And he does this all the way to his death. Think about it. The cross was probably the most negative, the harshest, the worst punishment for any criminal. And he takes that sign and makes it a positive, a plus sign, the cross, And if we look at today's gospel, we say to ourselves, well, then I don't have any chance of making it into heaven. If Jesus Christ is the same yesterday, today, and forever, boy, am I in trouble. I haven't exactly lived the best life I could. I could have been better to my neighbor. I could have taken God more seriously. I wouldn't have put work in front of God. I wouldn't have put everything in front of my family. And yet he gives us this beautiful story about the prodigal son. And it really is a beautiful story. Because this son goes off and decides he's going to do whatever he wants. He's sowing his wild oats. He's spending money like crazy. And it was really money he shouldn't have had. In scriptural time, the youngest son got nothing. The middle son got nothing. Only the oldest son inherited. And yet he divided his wealth. The father, perhaps knowing that the son needed to go out and do this to turn himself around. And that's the beauty of this story. Even after he goes through everything else, all of a sudden the scripture says he came to himself. I just love that line. In Greek, they call it metanoia, a turning around, doing a 180, understanding that what we had done is wrong. And I think that's one of the hardest things today. That's okay. Mine is 5 o'clock somewhere, so don't worry about it. We need to think about where our life is. And none of us are perfect. There is that saying that anybody who says they are not a sinner is a liar. One of the great saints had always said that. If we tell ourselves we have not sinned, we are lying to ourselves, because before God, we are all sinners. There's not one of us that hasn't sinned, except the Lord himself. And Mary, who decided not to sin, not because she was born without sin, but because she decided in her life she would not sin and follow the life that God has sent her. And we often think about this younger son coming back, and that reaction of the father doesn't even give him a chance to explain himself or anything else. As soon as he says he's sorry, and even before that, he's already kissing him and hugging him. And then he accepts him back as his son, not as a servant, as he wanted. Let me be one of your hired servants. He doesn't even give him a chance to spit that out. But he accepts him as his own. My dear friends, as we go through this week and as we prepare for the great fast, let us think about returning to ourselves, listening to the grace that God has given to us. Let us make a good confession, especially if we haven't done that in a while. Let us take the time to honestly look at ourselves, because that's what Lent's all about. Lent's that whole thing of looking at ourselves naked in the mirror, to see our flaws, to see where we're at, not the state-of-the-art thing that, hey, I'm a great guy, I did this or I did that, as we saw in last week's gospel message. But the fact of honestly looking at ourselves and begin to strive to be that son or daughter that God has called us to be. And if we do that, the great fast is going to be of great spiritual benefit for us. And when we hit Pascha, we will understand why the Lord came into the world, to suffer, die, and rise from the dead, so that you and I could once again be the children of the Father. Let us all sit